After more than a year of petitions and protests, Kenya has been forced to halt plans to build its first ever coal-fired power plant. The campaign group DeCOALonize took the country's National Environment Management Authority to court for approving the plant's construction on the Lamu Archipelago. The seaside town is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and critics warned building the Chinese-funded plant would destroy the area's natural beauty. A judge agreed, and a National Environmental Tribunal ruled that the firm building the plant had failed to do a proper environmental assessment. But those defending the plant have about 2 weeks left to appeal. So, is the fight really over? Well, one of those who fought against the plant is Samia Omar Bwana. She's a board member of the DeCOALonize Kenya campaign. Good to have you on the program once again. Samia, you spoke to us a year ago when you were fighting. Now, the judges have halted it, but it's not a clear victory yet, is it?
Not really, because all they've done is say the project is suspended until the project proponents can do a new EIA study. However, the power purchase agreement between the Kenya government and Lamu Power is still there. It's a 25-year agreement, and unless both parties pull out of it, actually Kenyans are fixed to pay $360 billion per year, whether or not the project goes on. So we hope they pull out.
Would it be embarrassing for the Kenyan government to still continue even though the judges ruled against them?
I think it's already embarrassing, and unless somebody hasn't read the news, it's quite embarrassing, because not only have the courts decided, but even UNESCO, as of Monday, the World Heritage Committee made a decision to cite that the government of Kenya hasn't done enough to do assessments in order to make sure that the project is not going to have the right impact. A lot of potential investors that they were expecting by now would be contributing towards the plant haven't. That includes General Electric, the African Development Bank. These are all potential investors that they had talked of that have already contributed, but in true essence they haven't. So
a lot of very powerful people and institutions stand to lose a lot of money by cancelling this project. With that in mind, tell me a little bit about the battle and the resistance you came across.
Yeah, I think the biggest battle has really been for the community and the grassroots, because for us who are focusing on the national campaign, it's easy to kind of shut yourself out and focus on the activism on the global scale. But in the grassroots, we have some of the local activists from Save Lamu who have actually been leading that campaign, have been arrested, have been harassed. It was quite a struggle for them for many years. Even they've not received positive acceptance from some of their friends and the political allies. Some have had fallouts. So it's more direct threat to the grassroots community. For us as a national campaign, it's still a challenge. We had a demonstration a couple of weeks ago where we actually couldn't complete the demonstration. We weren't allowed to proceed on to the Chinese embassy because of influence and power from the police. So I think... So
the police made it difficult for you to demonstrate?
Yeah, they stopped the demonstration halfway.
You're called DeCOALonize. You're not called Save a UNESCO World Heritage Site or Save Lamu, right? So with that in mind, is this all about the environment, or is it a mix of the specific fragility of Lamu plus the environment?
Actually, DeCOALonize, as you rightly put, it's more about being against coal and pro-renewable energy. And that's because although the Lamu coal power plant is currently the biggest planned power plant, there have been talks about starting coal power plant in Kwale. There have been talks about starting one in Kitui. There is currently a proposed coal mining project in Kitui County, and there are other proposed mining projects in other counties. So we're about actually being anti-coal in general and supporting renewable energy projects.
The government's saying we have critical energy needs. Coal is a simple, easy answer. We can do business quickly and get things up and running. I guess I'm not going to ask you to provide solutions here. You're not the energy minister, but do you have sympathy for that perspective?
I see where that argument is coming from, if only it was valid. The thing is, coal used to be cheap many years ago, but now with all the subsidies for renewable energy, furthermore, considering the stringent rules that require a lot of mitigation plans. So if you account for environmental mitigation and the payments the institution, the private sector has to give to their staff for health insurance and all that coverage, it's actually more expensive. So calling it cheap is only when looking at superficially. As a matter of fact, the Institute for Energy and Energy Economic and Financial Analysis in the US analyzed a research project by the government of Kenya called the Least Cost Power Development Plan that actually looked at the cost of the project. And in fact, the actual cost predicted by the proponents was 0.7 cents, but it's actually 10 times more. It's over-exaggerated how cheap coal is. It's actually not cheap.
So you believe it's, well, I'm not saying you believe, but the available evidence shows that it's dirty and it's expensive.
It's very expensive.
So there's a political element to this. On the continent, people say, well, the Chinese are investing. Be nice to the Chinese because we need Chinese investment. You've taken on the Chinese indirectly here and you've won temporarily. What does that mean politically?
Yeah, I think one, we conflate the Chinese a lot, but the investors, Power China, a private investment company, and ICBC, the Chinese bank, is a private company. But the government itself of China is actually anti-coal. They're closing down the coal power plants. They're giving subsidies to renewable energy. So as a government of China, we've actually been pleading with them. The campaign had a meeting with the Chinese ambassador to Kenya last week, Friday, which was very positive. And he made it very clear that it's the people of Kenya, the government of Kenya, that will decide its own fate, while the private sector is deciding to go on with the coal power plant. As an institution, as a government institution, as a national policy in China, they are against coal.
If these guys appeal and then they can convince the judges that they factored in the environmental assessment, this won't be too damaging, too harmful, they're going to create jobs, and this is needed to power the local community at the very least, what do you do then?
There's a lot to be done. One, our argument isn't only on the environment, that's maybe 30% of it, but we have the financial angle, where we actually are arguing with the Energy Regulation Commission that this does not make any financial sense. And the legal institutions in Kenya, the National Environmental Tribunal is a first step. You actually have the High Court, you have the Supreme Court, and you also have international courts that handle such cases, especially the environmental courts of Kenya, which we actually haven't even gone to yet in case they appeal.
Okay, so you have a lot of tools to play with.
A lot of tools to play with.
You're going to keep on fighting.
And some under the belt that I won't reveal.
Okay, great. To be revealed later on the show. Samia, Bwana, good to have you on the program again.
Thank you.